Slaughterhouse 5, Chapter 2C. And on the third day of wandering, somebody shot at the four from far away. Shot 4 times as they crossed a narrow brick road. One shot was for the scouts, the next one was for the anti-tank gunner, whose name was Roland Wary. The third bullet was for the filthy flamingo who stopped dead center in the road when the lethal bee buzzed past his ear. Billy stood there politely, giving the marksman another chance. It was his addled understanding of the rules of warfare that the marksman should be given a second chance. The next shot missed Billy's kneecaps by an inch, going end on end from the sound of it. Roland Wary and the scouts were safe in a ditch, and Weary growled at Billy, "Get out of the road, you dumb motherfucker." The last word was still a novelty on the speech of white people in 1944. It was fresh and astonishing to Billy, who had never fucked anyone and did his job. It woke him up and got him off the road. "Saved your life again, you dumb bastard," Wary said to Billy in the ditch. He had been saving Billy's life for days, cursing him, kicking him, slapping him, making him move. It was absolutely necessary that cruelty be used because Billy wouldn't do anything to save himself. Billy wanted to quit. He was cold, hungry, embarrassed, incompetent. He could scarcely distinguish between sleep and wakefulness. Now, on the third day, found no important differences either between waking and standing still. He wished everyone would leave him alone. "You guys go on without me," he said again and again. Weary was the new to war. As Billy, he was a replacement too. As part of a gun crew, he had helped to fire one shot in anger from a 57mm anti-tank gun. The gun made a ripping sound like the opening of a zipper on the fly of a God Almighty. The gun lapped up snow and vegetation with a blowtorch 30 feet long. The flame left a back arrow on the ground, showing the Germans exactly where the gun was hidden. The shot was a miss. What had been a miss was a Tiger tank. It switched its 88mm snout around sniffily, saw the arrow on the ground, it fired, it killed everybody on the gun crew but Weary. So it goes. Roland Weary was only 18, was at the end of an unhappy childhood spent mostly in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He had been unpopular in Pittsburgh. He had been unpopular because he was a stupid and fat and mean and smelled like bacon, and no matter how much he washed, he was always being ditched in Pittsburgh by people who did not want him with them. It made Weary sick to be ditched. When Weary was ditched, he would find somebody who was even more unpopular than himself, and he would horse around with that person for a while, pretending to be friendly, and then he would find some pretext for beating the shit out of him. It was a pattern. It was crazy, sexy, murderous relationship Weary entered into the people he eventually beat up. He told them about his father's collection of guns and swords and torture instruments and leg irons and so on. Weary's father was a plumber, actually, did collect such things, and his collection was insured for $4,000. He wasn't alone. He belonged to a big club composed of people who collected things like that. Weary's father once gave Weary's mother a Spanish thumbscrew in working condition for a kitchen paperweight. Another time he gave her a table lamp whose base was a model of a foot high of a famous Iron Maiden in Nuremberg. The real Iron Maiden was a medieval torture instrument, a sort of a boiler which was shaped like a woman on the outside, lined with spikes. The front of the woman was composed of 2 hinged doors. The idea was to put a criminal inside, then close the doors slowly. There were 2 special spikes where his eyes would be. There was a drain in the bottom to let out of all the blood, so it goes. Weary had told Billy Pilgrim about the Iron Maiden, about the drain in her bottom and what it was for. He had talked to Billy about dum-dums. He told him about his father's Derringer pistol, which he could be carried in a vest pocket, which was yet capable of making a hole in a man, which a bull bat could fly through, which without touching either wing. Weary scornfully bet Billy one time that he didn't even know what a blood gutter was. Billy guessed that it was the drain in the bottom of the Iron Maiden, but that was wrong. A blood gutter, Billy learned, was the shallow groove in the side of a blade of a sword or a bayonet. Weary told Billy about neat tortures he had read about, seen in the movies, or heard on the radio about other neat tortures he himself invented. One of the inventions was sticking a dentist drill into a guy's ear. He asked Billy what he thought the worst form of execution was. Billy had no opinion. The correct answer turned out to be this: you stake a guy onto an anthill in the desert. See? He's facing upward, and you put honey all over his balls and pecker, and you cut off his eyelids so he has to stare at the sun till he dies. So it goes. Now lying in the ditch with Billy and the scouts after having been shot at, Weary made Billy take a very close look at his trench knife. It was government issue. It was present from his father. It had a 10-inch blade that was triangular in cross-section. Its grips consisted of brass knuckles, was a chain of rings through which Weary slipped his stubby fingers through. Rings weren't simple, they were bristled with spikes. Weary laid the spikes along Billy's cheek, rowled the cheek with a savagely affectionate restraint. How'd you like to be hit with this? He wanted to know. I wouldn't, said Billy. No, why? The blade's triangular? No, makes a wound that won't close up. Oh, makes three-sided hole in a guy. You stick an ordinary knife in a guy? Makes a slit. Right, a slit closes right up, right? Right? Shit, what do you know? What the hell does they teach in college? I wasn't there very long, said Billy. Which was true. He had only 6 months of college, and the college had been a regular college either. It had been a night school in the Ilium School of Optometry. Joe College, said Weary scathingly. Billy shrugged. There's more to life than what you read in books, said Weary. You find that out. Billy made no reply of this either there in the ditch, since he didn't want the conversation to go that way any longer necessary. He claimed, dimly tempted to say, though, that he knew a thing or two about gore. Billy, after all, had contemplated torture and the hideous wounds in the beginning and the end of the nearly every day of his childhood. Billy had an extremely gruesome crucifix hanging in the wall of his little bedroom in Ilium. A military surgeon would have admired the clinical fidelity of the artist's rendition of Christ's wounds, the spear wound, the thorn wounds, the holes that were made, the iron spikes. Billy's Christ died horribly. He was pitiful. So it goes. Billy wasn't a Catholic, even though he grew up with his ghastly crucifix on his wall. His father had no religion. His mother was a substitute organist for several churches around town. She took Billy with her whenever she played, taught him to play a little too. She said she was going to join a church as soon as she decided which one was right. She never did decide. She did develop a terrific hankering for a crucifix though, and she bought one from Santa Fe gift shop during a trip the little family made out west during the Great Depression. Like so many Americans, she was trying to construct a life that made sense from things found in gift shops, and the crucifix went up on the wall of Billy Pilgrim. The two scouts, loving the walnut stocks of their rifles in the ditch, whispered that it was time to move out again. 10 minutes had gone by without anybody coming to see if they were hit or not to finish them off. Whoever had shot was evidently far away and all alone, and the four crawled out of the ditch without drawing any more fire. They crawled into the forest like the big, unlucky mammals they were. Then they stood up and began to walk quickly. The forest was dark and old. The pines were planted in ranks of files. There was no undergrowth. 4 inches of unmarked snow blanketed the ground. The Americans had no choice but to leave trails in the snow as unambiguous as diagrams in the book on the ballroom dancing. Step, side, rest, step, side, rest.